It's time for real accountability from Virginia officials, Democrats, and the media. Joining me now, Dinesh D'Souza, conservative commentator and filmmaker. Dinesh, the media really are a big part of this. Imagine if any of this stuff happened under Republican rule at a red state, rural area. They'd be crawling all over this story.
Absolutely. You mentioned a moment ago that it's tragic when you have a one-party state. But even when you have a one-party state, you at least can have that party under some kind of scrutiny from oversight institutions, from the media. But when you have a one-party state that is backed up by a media that now is not just biased, but will openly lie, cover up facts, distort, go after the critics of the regime. And then when you have a digital media on top of that will step in and censor people who are critics and dissidents, now you have the makings of a sort of soft authoritarianism. And this is where the accountability goes completely out the window. This is when all kinds of abuses occur. And when parents protest, the parents are made into the real criminals.
Well, it's also very telling, is it not, Dinesh, that this superintendent comes armed with a big piece of evidence, a Time magazine story from 2016. What does that have to do with the price of cheese? From 2016 about, I guess, how transgendered persons don't commit such acts or can't or won't. So he came armed with what he thought was big evidence. And it turns out, like, we don't know all the facts. We don't know what will ultimately be discovered. But that's how ideological he is, instead of worrying about this young woman.
I think that's the key point, that instead of going from the facts of the case to making a generalization or seeing if there's a pattern that he could comment on, he started out with an ideological premise. The ideological premise is that this cannot possibly happen because, after all, Time magazine said it can't happen, therefore it can't happen. And then when it does happen, it's almost as if you've got to erase the facts in front of your face, because otherwise your ideological narrative begins to look a little shaky. So this is what we're seeing, by the way, not just in one place, not just in Northern Virginia, all across the country now, a kind of surrealism in the American political scene in which facts that you see in front of you, you have huge fires and CNN goes, well, those are peaceful. And that's just the way it is now, in which you have to sort of look behind the screen of the media to try to figure out what's really going on. It's not easy to do.
They don't cover these stories when they're inconvenient to their preset narratives. They cover them up. That's the big difference. They're not reporters. They repeat the party line day in and day out. They don't pretend to be commentators. They don't say they're commentators. That's a different matter. I think we're going to learn a lot more.
I think,
Dinesh.
Laura, there's a silver lining here. It's just simply the fact that they live in their own bubble, and there's a massive resistance brewing to all this, but they don't know about it because they don't talk to people who fall in that camp. They've got the media covering for them, and so they'll pay a price when the American people get to have their say.
Dinesh, thank you. Great to see you.